Right, I am sitting here at the Asimov booth with no other than Niko McCarty. You might have read some of his content. He is an amazing writer, an amazing thinker, and yeah, I have had the privilege today to ask him a couple of questions. So Niko, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey here, like thus far, of getting into writing?
Yeah, so I studied science like many other people at iGEM. I did my master's at Imperial College with Rodrigo and with Tom Ellis. And I started a PhD at Caltech, and I dropped out and I went to science journalism school. I had always just loved writing. I did my undergrad at the University of Iowa, which has a really strong, they have the Iowa Writers Workshop, and Kurt Vonnegut used to teach there. Marilyn Robinson teaches there. They've just had some like exceptional writers who live and teach there. So I've been writing since then. I think my first actual writing job was with Synbio Beta, maybe like 7 years ago now. And yeah, when I went to journalism school, I missed synthetic biology, so I started a blog, and that's kind of how I got back into it.
Awesome. So could you tell us a little bit about your favorite article, or an article that you're really proud about that you've written?
This is going to sound maybe a little bit self-centered or something, but I think
that's the intention of the question.
So sometimes I will write a piece and I know it's good because I actually cry when I'm done writing it.
Yeah.
Which sounds, it almost sounds foolish, like for a writer to cry about his own thing. You know, other people's writing makes me cry all the time. But most of what I write just does not make me cry. I don't care. You know, it's like I'm explaining something, or I'm, you know, writing about synthetic biology, and I just like, I don't really care that much because I've been following it for so long.
Yeah.
So 2 pieces that made me cry that I've published. One is biology is a burrito. So I wrote about how dense a living cell is and how amazing that is. And I think the reason I cried is because I wrote about leaving my PhD.
Yeah.
So part of the piece is about me dropping out of my PhD. But this being like the big thing I took away is like this quantitative lens of how biology works. And it was just almost like painful for me to revisit. And so I didn't cry in the first draft or the second draft or the third draft. It's like when I was editing, and I reread it, and I was like, I know I did it right this time. Like, I know this is right. And it did really well. Like, usually when I cry, the piece does really well, actually. And then the other one that made me cry was, it was like 3 years of Codon. It was about writing, like lessons I had learned from writing.
Yeah.
And I really feel like I packed so much of myself in that piece that that's another one where I cried. Those are my favorites.
I love that, and really appreciate you sharing that, because yeah, that would be something not a lot of people would actually share. But what a powerful indicator, really, because it sounds to me like you're really putting in a part of yourself in your writing, and you're writing from, you know, your really your personal experience. Because in my belief, like, I think when a lot of people write, they write because they want to accomplish a certain goal. But it sounds to me like you write because you ultimately want to express yourself, and that turns into something worth crying for. Yeah, so that is pretty great. I wanted to ask you, so on the topic of the bio industry as a whole, like, what do you think this industry needs to start thinking more about? Like, what are some of the missing elements that you've noticed and that you would like to see more of, basically?
It's another. Yeah, so I'll be careful, I guess, what I say, but so I come to events like iGEM. It's great. So many students are involved. there's like 100 high school teams this year. So kids are younger and younger engineering biology, which is exciting and scary in other ways. And the conference is so big, it's so impressive, it's so amazing. But the thing that I've just like come to appreciate more and more is that synthetic biology feels advanced, and we talk about it as if it's this unbelievable thing, this paradigm shift. Well, like the paradigm hasn't really shifted much in the last 20 years. And I really think that we're still living in the dark ages of biology. So I do think that we're in an important era. I think we're at an inflection point, but like we're not in this like exponential thing that sometimes you would get that vibe if you just hung out with synthetic biology people. Like we don't even know what most genes do. We work in like 5 different organisms. We don't know anything actually about what is out there. We don't know how to scale anything. There's like so much untapped potential. Like I do believe that the ability to engineer life is the single most profound thing that exists. I think it is the most important thing that anybody could be working on, actually. And it's at least as important as AGI, or I really do believe that. And yet the attention that biology gets is like 5% of AI. Like if you want to make an impact, I really do believe that biology is the best. I just think we need to appreciate that we're in the dark ages, and there's so much foundational tool development that needs to be done. Like better tools to study RNA expression. Like how crazy is it that when we do transcriptomics, we kill cells, strip out their RNA, and get one time point of cells. And everybody does it in a different way. Nothing is directly comparable. Like we need better methods to answer foundational questions, like the most basic things. Like we should have, continuous ways to measure RNA expression, like real-time RNA monitoring, things like this. Like I just think it's so exciting to me for that reason. That there's so much to be discovered.
Yeah, it feels like we've been just scratching the surface really for the last 70 years of genetic, like the history of genetic engineering and all of that. But to be on the more, like a little bit more optimistic side, I still feel like something is happening. I don't know if you share that same sentiment, but I feel like we are at those data points right before something is about to happen. Things get faster and faster. So I'm optimistic, and I think you're also quite optimistic as well. One thing that you said that really resonated with me, that I've also experienced as well, is that compared to other industries like AI, AGI, longevity, I've always felt that synthetic biology is missing that pulse of some people some people can get like religious about certain things. I'm not saying that we should also get religious about it, but I think there's so much that we can do as an industry to be better promoters of our work, our accomplishments and things like that. I don't know. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I agree we're at an inflection point. I think important things are happening, and it will happen in the next 80 years, like by the end of the century. I do think it will be profound, which is why I'm honored to be a part of it now, because I would like to write things that hopefully stand the test of time. So that's what I'm thinking about now. But I completely agree with you. I think there's a need in synthetic biology in general to write exceptionally good pieces consistently and to actually not hype the industry. So to write really balanced perspectives. Like an example is, at UC Davis, these researchers made transgenic goats that produce lysozyme in their milk. And these goats could treat some childhood diarrheal diseases because lysozyme does something with the gut microbiome. And their idea is like, let's get these transgenic goats to Africa so that kids can drink goat milk with lysozyme. But like there are other ways to do that. There's like oral rehydration therapy. There's other things NGOs use to treat diarrhea. instead of just saying, oh, these transgenic goats are amazing, we need really balanced, data-driven, evidence-based approaches that are like, what are the economics of this approach versus transgenic goats? Like, I don't see that discussion enough. I almost never see it. It's always like visions for synthetic biology, and what that looks like to outsiders, I'm realizing, is like, the belief that it will solve everything. So like the fundamental believers, and then the skeptics. So like, there's a lot of people who are like, well, what does that mean for biosecurity? What does that mean? And like, they're a little more fearful. So what we're trying to do now with Asimov Press is like really data-driven, evidence-based views of like, let's cover the history and the future of engineered biology. But when we write these deep dives about a story, really weigh the evidence of like, what is the what are the balancing counterfactuals? Why should you believe this? Well, here's the data. Here's the economics. Here's the, that's what we want to be. Like, to write pieces that put issues at rest almost, instead of pulling on one side or the other.
One thing I would love to see, actually, in Sweden, where I grew up, reading the newspapers, something that Swedish people loved to read and write is debate articles. So I'll be interested to see more debating in the industry. So perhaps a debate article that can go into the press, or a video of some sort where you have two very strong opposing views. I think that is actually gonna, allow us to converge and then hopefully get out stronger on the other side, instead of like constantly hive-minding or echo-chambering ourselves that we have a tendency to do, especially in the early days of an industry. So let's wrap things up in a final question. What do you think about the general biomedia ecosystem? I mean, you're an active contributor to that. Would love to, hear your thoughts on that topic.
Yeah, so I think there's kind of two funnels, or two, I won't say they're polar opposites, but there's really like two outreach strategies that people use to explain biotech and keep track of biotech. There's the news outlets. So there's Stat. I think Stat does an amazing job, and they write to people in biotech. Like, I don't know, my friends who study philosophy do not read Stat. My friends who study religion do not read Stat. But I know a lot of people in the industry who read Stat, and that's great. I think it's super valuable. On the other end, there's some really good bloggers. There's some scientists who write really good pieces, really deep. They have a perspective that journalists don't have, which is super valuable. But it's so distributed. It's really distributed. Like, once a month, you might come across an amazing blog. Like, there was this guy a while ago, right, who released like 60,000 words on fertility. Do you remember that? And he released it as like a Google Doc. He's like, hey, here's a Google Doc on fertility. It's like 60,000 words. It analyzes trends for the last 100 years on fertility rates and new treatments, and it's like the most amazing thing ever.
Yeah.
And it's like a Google Doc that he posts on Twitter. Like, those are kind of what I see as the two extremes. What I really want to do is like, in the middle.
Yeah.
Can we write things to a wider audience than Stat, but at the professionalism of Stat, at the professionalism of like that crowd, but being inside the field, really tightly being interwoven in the field, writing in approachable terms, and doing so consistently in a beautiful way. I really do feel like that's missing. Like, so that's what we're trying to do at Asimov Press. Like, really well-reasoned, evidence-based, data-rich pieces about biology, the history of engineered biology, stories from history, where the field is going, but like, in a really beautiful, consistent way with columnists. I would love to take the best of the bloggers and have them write for Asimov Press, of course. And then the other thing is, I just feel like I said before, like, there's not enough coverage of what is this field, even though I think it's so important.
Yeah.
So I think training more people how to be good writers is also very important.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of AI writers, there's tons of economics writers, but like, where are all the, we should have 1,000 biotech writers.
Yeah.
So I also started a writing fellowship with Pillar and with Homeworld Collective to train people how to write about biology. So it's all part of this sort of new mission of like filling that gap of getting scientists to become better writers.
Yeah, I love that, and I have to say, like, you've inspired me to think more deeply about writing and how of a powerful tool it can be for any purpose, like for your own purpose, your professional purpose, communicating with your group, your community, the entire world, really. And I think we live in a very interesting day and age where we have the internet, where we can like rapidly get thoughts out there, and we need more bio thoughts out there. So yeah, let's keep at it, and make sure to check out Nikos' writing if you haven't done so yet. Thank you. Appreciate it.